I mean, if you guys listening ever seen the movie Matilda or the movie Carrie, that was my life. Only without the telekinesis.
Yeah, yeah, without the telekinesis, yeah.
And no pig's blood. And I didn't massacre my high school prom.
Well, good to know. Yeah, I'm glad I'm not talking to some psycho out there.
No, but seriously, everything in Carrie was pretty. It has was is pretty accurate to me, and everything in Matilda is very accurate to me. So, um, I don't really watch those movies as much anymore, but they're good movies if you haven't seen them yet.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen either of those. Surprisingly, I know what they are. I just, never actually have seen them. So I'll definitely need to get into that whenever I have some free time.
Yeah, I think for me, it was just like kind of comforting because I saw myself being represented, and so because representation um, does matter. So seeing yourself makes you feel, oh, I'm not alone in this. So
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely. It's good to have like movies or even like you said, you have a love of music, like, having music out there that you can relate to as well. That is almost like the artist is reading your mind, or even like the actors or the directors in movies are like reading your mind too.
I mean, that's what happened when I listened to Chromatica by Lady Gaga. I was like, Lady Gaga, I did not give you permission to write songs about me.
It's like, how did you get in my mind, Gaga?
Yeah, yeah. So, so yeah.
Yeah, so like I guess for me, like my experience, it seemed like the worst of like the bullying happened back when I was in middle school. And it happened like basically in between like the seventh and ninth grade. And but I think the worst of it happened my eighth grade year of middle school. And it was like, yeah, of course, right before I go into high school. But like I know it wasn't like everybody in my school. It was a very few people that would like make fun of me. Like I guess as you know, like I have like a love for theater and music and like things like that. It's not a very like masculine thing, I guess, according to society,
I
to
mean, have you
like.
seen Gene Kelly? He's masculine.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's like society looks at stuff like musicals and stuff like that as like feminine. And I guess if you don't talk manly and if you don't like have these big muscles and if you're not playing sports, year round, if you're not tackling
Mm-hmm.
somebody down, that like you're automatically like gay, basically. And that's kind of where my eighth grade year, that kind of came up, with a few people. And I only had like one friend in eighth grade, and he ended up like moving out like after, like during the eighth grade year. So then I ended up having like nobody, and there was this one guy that would always like bring up how like, oh, Joel's gay, he's gay, like, him and that other guy, like, like the only other guy in class that I spoke to, he's like, he's like they're together. They're like in a relationship, and some stuff like that. And so, I would get like the whole gay kind of thing. I would have people like joke around and like say things like, like, oh, like, I had fun last night. Like stuff like that in front of the whole class, like making it seem like something happened. And or like I would and like I said, if I'm going to be like very honest, there was one student that it was eighth grade pictures. Like we had this like big group picture of like the whole class, and anyway, we were there. I was at the front row, and anyway, like while I was sitting there, there's a guy that like he kept on like bothering me like throughout the year. And this guy only went to our school during eighth grade. Like I never saw him again after eighth grade. I never saw him before then. and I think he ended up moving like out of state. But but anyway, like I said, we were sitting there and they're like preparing us for pictures, and anyway, like he started trying to like grab me, like grab me like further down, uh like in my private area. And I kept on like getting my hand,
The
trying
no
to
no
like,
face.
yeah, and yeah, trying to like get him to like stop. And it kept on happening, like it happened like 3 or 4 times. Nobody's noticing this, like, and we're at the front row, and that kind of blew my mind that like nobody was seeing this guy like trying to touch me and like trying to grab at me. And I felt like even if people weren't looking, like I still felt very like humiliated and embarrassed. And I remember like after we took the picture, of course I had to put on like a good old fake smile. And anyway, I like came home that day from school, and I was like crying, like telling my mom, like what happened. And just telling her that, like this guy, like, kept on trying to, like touch me. And, like, it's definitely unwarranted. I definitely wasn't like, please, like do this. And it was just very like just humiliating, not only like for me to have experienced it, but like in a way, like it felt like embarrassing for me to even like tell my mom like that something like that happened. And or even like it was embarrassing even for me to feel like I had to like tell my mom that this is stuff that like people are saying about me, that like I'm gay. And or even like I've always had like, I mean, I know a lot of people may say I don't have a weight problem. I feel like I do. And anyway, like I know this one kid that I was friends with, like he would always like come up to me and like he would poke me here on the side, and he would be like, poke the fat boy, poke the fat boy. And like he would say that like for a while. And like I ended up like telling my mom, kind of about that too. My mom was like someone, for people that don't know, my mom was like someone that I go to for like a lot of my problems. And I'm glad to have somebody like her because she definitely gave good advice. But anyway, like my mom kind of told me like, you really need to talk to him about this. Like this is supposedly your friend, like a friend that like you talk to, and like you really need to tell him how you feel. Even if you're like too scared to like say it in person, send it in email, because we had like a business tech class together. So like I ended up emailing him and like kind of telling him, like, I really don't, like this, like you talking about my weight and like, calling me fat and all that. And, like I told him, like, how would you feel if like I was calling you like a skeleton? Because he was very thin. It's like, I mean, you like, I think that would hurt just as bad, like calling somebody like a stick or a skeleton if they're skinny, compared to, somebody like me that may be a little bit more bigger boned. And, maybe, uh, like I consider myself a little bit overweight. But, like I feel like it just kind of was pointed out to me by like a friend. And I guess just going through something like that was very hurtful. And but he ended up like apologizing. So I was glad for that. But of course with that other guy that that was grabbing me, I never saw him again. And of course never heard nothing from him again. But like going into ninth grade year, like the only time where I had like any kind of bullying going on was like first semester, like as being like the fresh meat as I call it. And anyway, I was in a gym class and I was with like other grades above me, like sophomore, junior, seniors. And I guess maybe back then I was very still maybe, but like I was very, I guess, white, like pale, I guess. Like whenever I guess I am, apparently. I kind of thought I was a little bit I had darker shade. But anyway, I was like a very quiet guy as well. So like people started calling me, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie, but like people started calling me powder. And there was this movie called Powder about this like it was this like very very white kind of guy. He was like came from out of like I don't think he was from Earth. And anyway, he was like very quiet and like he was very bullied for the way he looked and I guess because I was quiet, they thought like, oh, this is like an easy target. Like let's go after this guy. So so I kind of went through a little bit of that being called powder and that was really about it in high school. So I think that's why I kind of like digged a little bit more into my eighth grade year because I don't think a lot of the other students really knew that like I went through something like that, you know, except for the ones that did bully me. But so yeah, that's kind of like my experience with bullying and you know I mean it's hard to like think back on and remembering it, but at the same time it's made me who I am today. I feel like, you know, there are good and bad times. You know, of course that's happened since then, but I feel like, you know, something like that did not defeat me and it did not break me. So I feel like I came out winning in the end. So
Mm. Yeah, that's good. I mean, yeah, that's really good. I love that you have a positive spin on it. Because because I did theater too in high school and in middle school, and to the point where people thought I was gay, even though I never really said anything. I, like you, was very quiet, but I was very passionate about theater. I loved to sing and musical theater, so I was singing these songs, and everybody just assumed. They just assumed. They never, no one once had ever came up to me and be like, "Are you gay?" And they just always assumed. To the point of like, I tried to ask out this one girl, and she was like, "Oh, I don't like you in that way." And then a couple years later, she would say to me, "Oh, I thought you were gay," and I was like, "Really not." you know, um, there's that stereotype of only gays love theater, even though I met other gay people who does not like theater, does not like musicals. So it's just like, it's I think just a stereotype, and that can be harmful for people like us who aren't and who just loves theater, and that's okay.
yes, exactly. That's why I don't understand. Like, why can't straight men enjoy theater without being like butchered for it? Basically, it's like, what are you like? It's almost like, you know, have you gone mad? Like, why do you like theater? It's like, sorry, like Joseph and the Dreamcoat is pretty amazing.
I don't know. I guess this is not 1950s anymore, where theater was like mainstream, because theater is not so much mainstream anymore. I know a lot about theater history, so
Yeah,
um, so I don't know. Yeah, within like the 50s, within the 50s, 60s, theater became less mainstream because you would hear like pop, like on the radio, you would hear musical theater songs, like songs from The King and I, songs from South Pacific on the radio. So it was just part of the culture, and it was part of the pop culture then. But now theater is not part of the mainstream circus or mainstream media anymore, as it used to be way back in the day.
yeah. I think that's a good way of putting it because I think, yeah, like I said, as the years go on, like culture changes, a new generation comes up,
Mm-hmm.
and like different
Mm-hmm.
like music becomes more popular, and then it's like they look down upon
Mm-hmm.
certain things too. And so I think Broadway needs to come on, bring it back up. I mean, we need to make it popular again, get it going.